Hey guys, Hitman89 here, I hope you're doing great, and today we're gonna be diving into Cyberpunk 2077. I'm pretty sure most of you heard of its horrible launch back in December 2020. The trailers promised us deep RPG elements, a live city populated with NPCs that have unique routines, and groundbreaking enemy and police AI. But we ended up having a broken game that should have never been released on all-gen consoles, extremely limited AI, and enough bugs and glitches to allow everyone to start a successful YouTube channel specialized in funny cyberpunk compilations. That being said, the devs have been working hard on trying to fix the game for nearly 2 years now. So the question we're gonna be answering with this review is, over 10 updates later and pretty much 2 years after Cyberpunk 2077 came out, is it good now? Without further ado, let's start this review with the graphics. I reviewed the game on PS5, but whether you're on next-gen consoles or PC, I think we can all agree that Cyberpunk looks pretty damn good. The environments look great, especially during nighttime with all those neon lights. Oh, and by the way, all the footage I captured for this review was shot in performance mode, cause ray tracing mode is locked to 30 FPS and only adds ray traced shadows and some other extremely minor visual improvements that are mostly noticeable indoors. So when it comes to character models, the main characters look great, NPCs look decent, but when driving around you'll quickly realize how bad the draw distance is. There's plenty of pop-in, and when you get out of the car and walk around the city a little bit, if you pay attention to pedestrians, you'll see quite a few clones. At least vehicles look amazing. Now when it comes to the animations, there are still many transitions that need fixing, and the lip sync job could be better, even though it's worth noting that they used AI to offer lip sync in all available languages. All around, I think Cyberpunk 2077 doesn't look like a next-gen game, but it can still be impressive every now and then. Now let's see if the performance matches the visuals. I haven't noticed any major dips during my playthrough, and I've also looked up a couple of benchmark videos to see how the game runs on Series X, and it seems to be a tiny bit worse, like 1 or 2 frames, so nothing really noticeable. Oh, and PC users, if you want to hit 60 FPS but you don't want it to look like you're playing a PS2 game, then you better have a beefy rig, cause Cyberpunk is very demanding. And if you're one of those broke-ass motherfuckers who are still on base PS4 or Xbox One, if you want to enjoy the game, I'd say unless you have super low expectations, wait until you upgrade, cause on all gen consoles, Cyberpunk simply looks and runs like shit. Now let's move on to the sound. Starting with the music, the main theme is just epic. I think the soundtrack is great, the sound effects are pretty good too. Sadly though, the voice acting straight up sucks. Just kidding, it's actually excellent. And thank God it is, cause with the amount of dialogue this game has, imagine how much of a pain in the ass it would be if the voice acting was lame.
Yeah, thanks.
No problem, bro. Anyway, I'ma let you guys listen to the game audio a little bit before we take a closer look at the most important part, the gameplay.
Hear that? Car. At this hour, in this place?
When the game first came out, it was pretty bare bones, and most importantly, it had an overwhelming amount of immersion breaking and sometimes even game breaking bugs. But now that it received several updates, well, it's still a buggy mess. Apart from the regular bugs you get every 10 minutes or so, I had some that wouldn't go away unless I restarted the game. For example, after the automatic love quest, I got stuck in the glitchy headache mode, which at first I didn't even know was a bug, so I kept on playing until I couldn't take it anymore cause that shit is super annoying, so I googled it and realized it wasn't supposed to happen. Other than that, almost every time I did anything other than quests, I came across all kinds of bugs and glitches. The physics are really weird too. Sometimes drivers die from the slightest impact, cars start spinning out of nowhere, and that's if they don't keep disappearing in the horizon. It's crazy how some people say they beat the game without seeing a single bug, cause it only takes one barely functioning eyeball to see the insane amount of bugs Cyberpunk 2077 contains. Anyway, we've seen some of the cons, let's take a look at the pros. My favorite part about the gameplay is how good guns feel, especially on PS5. The excellent implementation of the haptic feedback and adaptive trigger features makes ranged and melee combat much more immersive. Plus the game is gory, which is something I love. Driving also feels great and you can customize your character, obviously, even if you don't see it like 99% of the time. You can also customize your weapons with some mods and attachments, and you can craft some if you want. But while playing Cyberpunk, I couldn't help but think it should have been a linear, story-driven action-adventure game, cause it's not really a good RPG and the open world is humongous, but it doesn't feel alive, like at all. It's populated with brainless people who aimlessly walk around until they disappear. On the other hand, there are little details that I really enjoy and that I think increase the immersion, like how when you talk to a character while moving, they always turn their head and try to keep looking at you. But there's just too much talking here. If you stick to the main storyline, you'll spend 90% of the time listening to people talk, 5% of the time picking dialogue options that have zero impact on the story, and the other 5% actually doing some cool stuff. But most of the time, when you're not doing something scripted, the AI just breaks the immersion.
Huh?
For real, it's insane how bad it is. You can sneak past enemies while they're literally looking at you. Drivers don't even react when you point a gun at them. Oh, and you know brain dance? That stuff where you're supposed to look at videos and find clues? Yeah, that's boring as fuck. Speaking of which, let's talk about the fun factor. Honestly, the first 6 hours were sick. But then I started enjoying it less and less. And when I felt like the story was getting worse, that's when I realized I probably spent a dozen hours listening to people talk instead of actually playing. And that's a shame because the missions or quests are really not bad at all. They're definitely way more awesome than anything you could do in the open world on your own. Anyway, let's discuss the value for money. Realistically speaking, I think we're looking at a $30 game here. I mean, personally, I wouldn't spend more than $20 on it, cause other than being still pretty buggy, it lacks a lot of features that are considered basic in most AAA games.
Something ain't right.
Yeah, for sure. So only buy this game if you can get it for super cheap. Cyberpunk 2077 definitely received some major improvements since its horrendous launch. By the way, let's not forget that some pieces of shit gave the day one version a 10 out of 10. Anyway, the game improved a lot since then and actually became playable, enjoyable, and worth buying if you're a fan and if you can get it for cheap. So is it good now? Yes, but it'll never be the masterpiece we were promised and it's still technically flawed. That's why I'ma give it a 7 out of 10. I honestly don't know if Cyberpunk will ever get close to offering a bug-free experience. Until then, you can always get a used copy or borrow it from a friend, or maybe get it from buygames.ps, who sell all kinds of PlayStation and Xbox games for super cheap. You'll find their link in the description. Anyway, I hope you found this review useful. Give it a thumbs up if you did, and please subscribe if you're new to the channel. Let me know if there are any other games that you'd like me to review now and see if they manage to turn things around. It's been Hitman89. See you guys very soon.